afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the ARC of Massachusetts webinar series. Today we have a presentation from Dianne and her daughter Alexa, and they're going to be talking a little bit about transition. And Alexa's newly been entered the world of adult services, and they're going to share with you some of their thoughts about how they had made this transition a successful one. But before we get going, I just wanted to, again, welcome all of you. Just to let you know, I've muted you upon entry. And the reason being is that we record all our sessions, and it works for a better recording if we don't have a lot of background noise. So we're going to ask that you save the questions to the end, and you can just chat in those questions to us. So what I would love to hear about is who's on the phone today, and practice in the chat box. So if you could just chat in if you are a family member, that would be great. All right. It looks like we have lots of family members, which is wonderful. If you are a professional, could you chat in? Let us know who you are. Great. We have Danielle, who's a family member and also a special education attorney. And Phyllis, a mom, school law attorney, special needs advocate. Lots of people out there wearing two hats. All right, terrific. Okay, so just to let you know, if there are any issues with the technology, either your audio or your visual, it's really best to just disconnect and then reconnect again. That typically will take any issues away. So also, we have Rachel here from Transition Services, which is awesome. Okay, so at this point, I want to introduce Dianne Lescinskas and her daughter Alexa, and they're going to be sharing their stories. So thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to hear about what you did before 22 and what you're doing now. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Alexa's going to start out by reading from the slides. So Alexa, do you want to go right ahead?
I am 23 years old and a former student of the Henderson Inclusion School in Dorchester. I'm currently employed at TJ MAXX in Coleen's flower shop. Sometimes I help my friend with her dog walking company. I spend one day in Northeastern on a class and hanging out with friends. I go to the gym with my self-directed person. We also run errands and go shopping together.
Hey, that's terrific, Alexa. You sound like you have a pretty busy and full life there. How many years did you attend the Henderson Inclusion School?
Do you remember, Alexa? No. So Alexa started when she was 3 years old in a different Boston public school, and then that program ended when she was 5. So we transferred to another Boston public school, and then that program ended when she was about 7. And to get her into the Henderson, which was a very sought after school because it was fully inclusive K-5 at the time, we kept her back a year. and she stayed at that school until 5th grade when it ended. And then she went to the Harbor Pilot Middle School, and that's when we started our efforts to start a fully inclusive high school while she was in the middle school, which we were successful. And so the Henderson went from a K-5 to a K-12 plus the 18 to 22 program. And so Alexa went back to the Henderson and stayed there until she turned 22.
Wow, that's great. Terrific. Well, thank you. Sounds like you've got a busy life. I would love to hear more about how you got here today, and also a little bit more about Northeastern University, what you're doing there. So if you could just present your slide, that'd be great.
Okay. How I got here: great teachers, inclusion in school, all of education was inclusive in the community. I attend the MAXX program at Bunker Hill while I was in high school at 18 years old, starting with You're With Us, Northeastern University. I started travel training 4 years before I left school, and I had many internships and paid deployments. The Boys and Girls Club at Dorchester, Commission of Person with Disability at Boston City Hall, Northeastern University Bookstore, Coleen Flower Shop on Saturdays, starts at age 17. There's impact through Triangle, a peer leader, file, organize, and document into application order at Ethos Convent Square Library to assist the children librarian, food preparation at community service for at ETS with MRC, career reading program PYD. I can be set internship opportunities at the Henderson School starting in 2nd grade. After school at the Boys and Girls Club of Dorchester, I took many classes with my friends. Martin Richard Challenger Sports Program. I play basketball, soccer, and baseball.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, can you tell us more about Northeastern University?
Yes, I started in high school. I worked at the bookstore. I take classes with the field hockey students. I help out the field hockey team. I work out with the team and go to lunch with them.
So Alexa started when she was in high school through a contract that Boston Public Schools had with the You're With Us program. She was one of the first students to start with this program. And through the program, she audits classes. She is with the Northeastern field hockey team. So there's more than one student that spends time with her. They go to lunch together. Sometimes she'll go back to their dorms and they might cook lunch. Sometimes they order lunch out. She did a lot of travel training with her teachers to get to the program by the MBTA. And when she worked at the Northeastern bookstore, there was a paraprofessional that would go with her and fade her services and help support her while she was in that job. And the good thing is that DDS currently has him as one of the providers. So when she was leaving high school, she was able to stay in the program and now uses some of her DDS funding to continue to access this program with the field hockey team. So she right now is auditing 2 classes on Wednesdays and spends some time with the girls.
That sounds great. Alexa, what are the classes that you're taking?
One is sports psychology, and I forget the other one.
One sports psychology. You know, she can't remember what her other class is.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Terrific. All righty. Let's see. Let's move on to the next slide. And I don't know why it's not. Okay, here we go. So, Alexa, can you tell us a little bit about the skills that you learned along the way? So you're pointing to Park Street. So that'd be great to tell us a little bit about what you learned while you were in school.
Taking the MBTA, using Uber, safety skills, money management, time management, technology of reminders, advocating for myself, independent life skills, how to use my free time, job interviewing, writing a resume, filling out job application, testified at school committee hearing at the State House.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit more about learning about Uber and how technology helped you out with that?
It helps to share the status with the parents so they know where you are, and then check the license plate to make sure you are in the right car.
That's what they taught her at school, because we knew that this is something that we would want to use for Alexa to get around when needed. And so I had the school write that as a goal in the IEP, that they would work on safety skills for Uber, but also actually how to really use the app. So one great thing that they did teach her, and she does today faithfully, is before she gets into the Uber, she goes either to the front or the rear of the car, and she looks at the license plate, and she double checks on her app to make sure that she's getting into the correct car. But even prior to that, there's a way to share your status on Uber. I'm not sure about Lyft. We don't have Lyft, we just use Uber. So she always shares her status with me, so I can see who the driver is, the license plate, and I actually see the car coming to pick her up. And it shows you a map of when she's driving in the car, and then it will alert you when she's getting dropped off. But a lot of safety skills had to go in place first before we felt comfortable even allowing her to use that. You know, really using the MBTA was the first thing that we worked on for a couple of years, and what are the safety skills that go along with that, how to use the MBTA. Technology came into play where they downloaded at school the MBTA app and taught her how to use that, so she would really have a full understanding on how to take the train. You know, there were a lot of missteps along the way, and a lot of the support was faded, and it didn't happen overnight. I mean, a lot of parents will say, you know, I would be really afraid to let my child use the MBTA, but this took over 4 years for her to be successful with it, and it was really just repetition, and along with it came safety skills. And another thing that we wanted to put in place was to make sure she was accessing a modified sex education curriculum. So all of these things were things that we made sure got put into the goals in the IEP early, and that they happen often and not just once.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. No, that's fabulous. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do in your free time?
I like to hang out, go shopping, go for a walk.
To get your nails.
I like to get my nails done.
Oh, you like that's fun to do, isn't it? Yeah. Great. All right. And what are some of the things you did about learning how to advocate for yourself? What were some important lessons that you learned about that?
Peer impact.
She took a class quite a few times to peer impact that helped her with standing up for herself, advocating. They also did a lot of work at school on recognizing what her disability is. There was a long time where Alexa really didn't want to talk about her disability, but we knew that when she left, she needs to advocate for herself either at a job or in a different situation. So those are skills we worked on before she left, where she really felt comfortable talking about it and having a full understanding, not that it would define her at all, but knowing that there are certain times where you may have to reveal that, whether it's on a job application or in a job interview, to help yourself. So it took a long time along the way in different ways, but I think Alexa does really well. It's still a work in progress because, as she'll talk later in this presentation at TJ MAXX, she's still having some difficulty advocating for herself. She has a job coach at TJ MAXX now, so it's still it's a work in progress, and we continue to help and support Alexa in making sure that she speaks up and talks when needed and when it would most benefit her.
Great, thank you. That was that's really very interesting. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. So Alexa, this is your job at TJ MAXX. Can you tell us a little bit about how'd you get the job and what you do there?
When you were still in high school.
I got it through Melissa.
Melissa, through Work Opportunities Unlimited, which was pre-ET through MRC.
Yep.
And so what did Melissa do with you?
We went to TJ MAXX.
They worked on Alexa's resume, right?
Yep.
And then Melissa would meet with you and work on your interviewing skills.
Yep.
So they did some interviewing skills. And Alexa knew that she wanted to work in retail because she loves fashion. She loves clothes. So that was a goal. Her main goal is someday to work at American Eagle. So Melissa went out and she talked to different employers about hiring Alexa. Some they weren't successful with, and it did take a while, but TJ MAXX was willing to interview Alexa, and then they hired her before she turned 22, which was fantastic because we were able to work on the travel training piece to get Alexa to and from work, as well as her teacher could come into the work and support her in the workplace and what skills she needed to know. So it was sort of a seamless transition. When she did turn 22, she had the job at TJ MAXX. And what we did, we worked with DDS and the job coach through Best Buddies to increase hours and increase the number of days at TJ MAXX.
That's great. Yeah. So are you in the on the floor, Alexa, or where do you work at TJ MAXX? Are you in a back room?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit what you're doing with the clothing in the pictures?
I'm a part of the backroom team. I support the process of merchandise delivered to the store. I open the boxes, sort the items, lay them out, approach them ready to be hung, strip off any papers or plastic when processing merchandise, maintain safety in the work environment.
All right.
Pictures? I don't know. So we've been working with Alexa on trying to expand on what she does, and TJ MAXX is willing to do that, but Alexa is very hesitant. Do you want to say why, what you like about the back room?
I just like my team in the back room. They're really nice to me, and I just like working back there. This is really quiet.
It's like it. Yeah, because it's quiet, and she said they play music. So we've been working with the job coach to see if we could maybe get her on the floor or try something different, increase her hours, which TJ MAXX is willing to do, but Alexa's a little hesitant about increasing her hours, but we're working on it. They did say that Alexa could, as part of the backroom, not just take the clothes out of the box, but start to put them on hangers, small, medium, large, extra large. So that's a goal for her this year that she's going to work on doing. And then our hope is that she'll be willing to go on the floor. She gets anxious about it, but so we're not pushing her on that. But we just would like to try. She's capable of doing more, and we're just trying to support her in that along with her job coach.
That's great. So it sounds like you know, both TJ MAXX, the school, the adult service provider, and you and Alexa have really had a wonderful partnership in this whole job. That's great. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Oh, all right. I'm sorry. I asked you that question. You already you already answered this. So that what you do at TJ MAXX, which is great. So anything you want to share, Alexa, about what you don't like about your job? I think we all work in places that we love some things and some things we don't like as much. Do you have any things that you really love? I think you mentioned the people that you work with in the back room, how much you enjoy them. What are some of the things maybe you don't care for or you don't like as much? You have any thoughts on that?
I don't have any thoughts.
Okay. All righty. Okay.
She also worked at Coleen's flower shop on Saturdays, and there was a point that she didn't like something. Remember, Alexa, going up and down the stairs? Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I'm trying out. That was when I did music or something.
Okay.
That's different.
Yeah. So she was
That's
working.
a different story.
All right. So we won't get into that story. It seems like Alexa doesn't want to talk about that one. But she does work at Coleen's flower shop on Saturdays, and they have a basement area where the refrigerator is, where they can hold the flowers. And it was difficult for Alexa. They had her walking up and down the stairs carrying items. So they switched it so she's mainly upstairs, right?
Yep.
And what do you do at Coleen's flower shop?
Shuck flowers, water tubes, envelopes, stamps, all the above.
All the above? Yes.
Great.
And she orders lunch for the employees on Saturdays.
Actually, I don't know. That's just my favorite thing.
Oh, that's your favorite thing to do.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, those two jobs. How did you get the job at Colleen's flower shop? Who helped you find that one?
Through my mom.
So Colleen's flower shop is, we live in Dorchester, so it's in Dorchester. And I worked there years ago when kids were really little and they were in school. I worked there part-time. So we knew that Alexa, we wanted her to get a job when she was in high school. So I approached Coleen and asked her, and she said absolutely. So Alexa started on Saturdays, and they were very supportive of her, but she still needed some assistance. So I asked Boston Public Schools, their transition coordinator, to go into Colleen's flower shop one day and talk to Coleen, the owner, and some of the other employees, how to best support Alexa, because they were sort of struggling with what can they have Alexa do, and how to best support her. So someone from Boston Public Schools did go to the flower shop, and they worked with the employees there, and they helped them figure out a plan and a schedule for Alexa that would work. And then they checked in on her a few times at that job. And also when she worked at the Boys and Girls Club in Dorchester, she, instead of going to the extended school year there, we asked that she could get a job, and she did get a job at the Boys and Girls Club in Dorchester. And again, I have an affiliation with the club. And I asked, instead of having Alexa be at the school for ESY, that that any support staff would go to her while she worked the job at the club. And she did that for 2 summers, and they would do check-ins. Boston Public School would come in and they would do check-ins. They worked also with the staff on how to do a visual schedule for Alexa, and then they would check in maybe once a week, twice a week, answer any questions that they may have, and kind of review things with Alexa. Anything that she was struggling with, they would try to troubleshoot that and help her. So I thought that that was very helpful in the summer, really not going to the school and doing ESY. I mean, I did find the job for Alexa, but then asked the school to come and then support her at that site, which they did, and they agreed to do.
Great. That's, that's just what a great example of partnering together, and using your personal networks, Dianne. I think about, my first job, and, my mom helped me get the job. So that's just such a natural progression, and it's wonderful that you're still working there, Alexa. You must be a really valued employee. So yes. Let's go to the next slide. And so you're going to tell us a little bit about things that you're working on.
exercise and nutrition.
Well, what else are you looking
Staying focused, friendship and relationships, time management skills, fill in the time when I get out of work. What else?
The last one.
I need to be more independent with my self-help skills, learning, food preparation, and etc.
So I see that in the future you want to live with your friends, but near your family.
Yeah.
That's great. And let's see. Can you tell me a little bit about how you set reminders?
You go to your phone and it should say set reminder, and you put on whatever you have to do to remind yourself how to set the reminder.
And you remind yourself about events,
helping with dogs or work or other stuff.
When she started that at school, we worked on that skill using the phone more often because we knew when she left high school, well, we could see in high school that she definitely needed the time management, setting her own alarm, because what would happen is I would wake her up in the morning and we would get into arguments because she didn't want to get out of bed, and I talked to SBIP meeting that this was an issue, and that obviously at 20 years old, no one wants their mom yelling at them to get out of bed, and I don't want to, we didn't want to get into arguments every day over this and have a lot of tension because I needed to get to work, she had to get, so, we all had to leave the house at the same time. So we worked on setting alarms, setting reminders, and the importance of being on time, because that was the other thing, that employment as well. It's the importance of making sure that you're on time for work, and how it's a reflection of if you're late. And so why is it important to do that? So not only the reminders, but setting the alarm clock was really fantastic. Also, the thing that we worked on, if we're on the topic of technology, tracking money. So Alexa, while she was in school, we as a family got her a debit card, but then she used that debit card at school to help her track money. So if they took the train and they had to fill her Charlie card, if they went out and they were out in the community and she wanted to get a cup of coffee.
I had a student card that already had money on it, so I didn't have to put money on it.
But we did need to learn that skill because you were going to be leaving school and you still needed to know how to fill your Charlie card. So we
already know how to fill my
Yes, she knows. So see, now you can see how it is. So I think all of those were really helpful. And one thing that Alexa and I were just talking about before we started this was at a few of her last IEP meetings before she left school, sometimes initiating conversation is difficult for Alexa, and so we always worried that if she was at a job, when she was at the Northeastern bookstore, she was on the floor. And how does she initiate conversations with people? So her speech therapist worked with her on sentence starters, and we put that in her notes on her phone, things that she could use to help her. She needed to look down, if she wanted to approach someone and have a conversation, what would be something as a sentence starter that she could remind herself, this is how I could start a conversation. So those were very helpful as well.
Yes.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Sometimes, I think that's a help for anybody. So I think, let's see, do we have any more slides, or this is the last slide? So I appreciate, that's it. Yeah, it's just, your learning hasn't stopped, and it just seems that you've got a great blend of using technology, using your family and other relationships you have, using the community and the resources that OWL has, and also, putting it out, getting some assistance through supports and services. So I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that charting the life course framework, but that's really, you know, they have what they call an integrated support star, and you just really demonstrated how that star all works together, all the points of the star, to be able to, you know, be able to achieve the goals that you have in life and that sort of thing. So thank you so much. We do have lots of questions. So Coleen has a question. Had a question: if her son is in partial inclusion program, not a collaborative, mainly concentrating on academics during his day with limited transition skills. Anybody else there who has done this? What type of transition program was behind one? Yeah, so if a partial inclusion program, you know, right. What were some of the, if anybody can share some of the activities they did for the transition?
Okay, so you're asking other people to share their thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm just, you know, just throw that out to you too, because I mean, as part of, so yeah, your experiences.
Yeah, the beginning slides, we talked about Alexa being in a full inclusion school, but I think it could happen at any school, even if it was partial inclusion, is working with the school to say, what kind of jobs are there in a school? There are many jobs in a school. Now, granted, transition, we want everything to be outside of the school, but it starts very early. Even though the law says it starts at age 14, we wanted Alexa, as well as her friends, to start much earlier. So in second grade, she had jobs in the school where she would help the kindergarten students off the bus and help them get to their classroom, or she'd be a support person in the office. When she was in middle school, she had jobs where she was photocopying, or she was a teacher's support person in the classroom. So they'd give her visuals with a checklist on things that the teacher would ask her to do. There's a lot of partnering with the school, and it was a lot of work to be able to ask to have the school do these things. But I think the more you just can advocate, the better off you are. Also, I feel like after school programming is really, really important. If you can, you know, we have the Boys and Girls Club in Dorchester, and they are inclusive, but having Alexa supported in an after school program, so it's not the same type of supervision that you have at a school, it's a little less. Friendships are made there, social skills are learned there, and also those work opportunities are there as well. As you heard, you know, Alexa eventually got a job there because they knew her so well. Mm-hmm. But they do things in an after-school program, you know, where they're giving you a little bit more independence. You know, there's still that support, but they give you a little bit more independence. I think all of those are helpful. Other things that we would do, what we started doing is we would take the train together. And I would start rather than just taking the train together, I'd start to really point things out. You know, Alexa, we're on the red line. This is inbound. This is outbound. Let's focus on what station we're going to for at home, in the home, grooming skills. You know, as a mom, you're just used to doing everything for your children. And sometimes when you're a loved one with a disability, you just might continue doing it into their teens and beyond. So I really had to pull myself back and say, okay, Alexa, you're going to blow dry your own hair, you're going to brush your own hair, you know, prompting her, look in the mirror, you know, make sure she's doing a lot of prompting to make sure that she's doing these things on her own. I feel like those are all transition skills that we, a family, have to partner within our own home and with our own community to those skills, as well as with the school itself. Yeah, so she's saying, you can say she knows how to do it now. She doesn't, like me, reminding her. I still have to remind you.
I do.
Yes, and that's okay.
You don't have to remind me.
But, you know, she's come such a long way, and she has a lot of great skills.
I should be reminding myself.
Yeah, she said she should be reminding herself. So.
Great. Yeah, it's really a kind of a dance to know when to step in and step out. Lynn thanks you for both Alexa and Dianne for sharing your experiences. let's see. And yes, you will all get a copy of the slides. Kathy would like to show them to the school because she's really impressed with the amount of internships you've had. And then Yuki answered a question about peer impact, which is organized by Triangle. And Dianne advocated to bring the program to the Henderson School, which is awesome. Kathy also, she had a question. She'd like to find out more information about job coaches. Could you talk a little bit about where they came from, or what the role of the school was, and then now that you're in adult services, how you're accessing it?
You want to talk about Ms. Carla? All right, Alexa wants me to talk. So when she was in school with some of her jobs, we knew that she needed support, that she couldn't just go to a job site really on her own, because she needed to work on a lot of different skills and then have some of the support faded, and then work more with the natural support that would be around her. So we really worked with the school in talking about transition and why this is necessary to have somebody with her. You know, we worked on developing the skills while she was at the school. You know, we talked about when she was at the Henderson K-5, having those jobs, why it was important, moving up to the middle school, increasing the work inside the school, and then taking it out. So developing those skills while she was at the school, and then going outside with jobs. We really had to work closely with the school to ask about paraprofessional support, to be with her. And what I wanted them to save their support, because we knew when she turned 22 that she wanted to get a job, she wanted to work. So we knew that a one-to-one in employment when she turned 22 was impossible. So how do we continue to pay those supports? And that's why we really heavily focused while she was in school to give her as many opportunities as possible and really try to push a lot of her independence in other ways. DDS does have job coaches, so as part of her adult services, she's at DDS. We chose Best Buddies as a provider because we have a nice relationship with Best Buddies. Alexa was in Best Buddies while she was at school. And so how the job coach works is that they can help find you a job. Alexa already had that job, but they can help find a job. They work on travel training with the individual to the job site, as well as support Alexa while she's at the job. Alexa, do you want to talk about what your job coach is doing for you now?
She's coming in to TJ MAXX and support me.
So she comes in about once a week, or?
I think once a month.
Now it's once a month because she's been there for a year. But there's times when I do have to call her and say, Alexa, I talked about this, I touched upon it. She has a hard time advocating for herself. So when she needs a day off, she has to give 2 weeks notice. And she really has a hard time. She'll ask me to call her boss, which is say, I can't call your boss or your mom. They don't want to hear from me. You have to give her. I'll give her, on the phone, for instance, this is what you can say. We'll write it down, like the sentence starters that we talked about.
Yeah, that's what I did.
And she did, yeah. But it took a little bit to get there. So the job coach would go in and work with Alexa on how you advocate yourself, how do you ask for those days off, or, if you're not feeling well, calling in sick, or if you want to get additional hours, which we're working on, or job, how do you ask for that? And so the job coach has been fantastic, and I can email or call them at any time, and they do it all the time. But when something is going on, then I do reach out. For instance, around the holidays, they took Alexa off the schedule on Fridays, which was a surprise. We don't get warning for that. All of a sudden, she wasn't on the schedule.
It's busy after the holidays.
Yeah, and so I had said to Alexa, find out why or when you're going to get back on the schedule, which she had a hard time doing. And that's when Best Buddies, the job coach, had come in and advocated for Alexa to get that Friday back. So she's back starting again this Friday. So sometimes turning 22 can be tricky and it's not all smooth sailing. This had happened right when she turned 22 around the holidays. She lost one of her days. So how do we fill that time in?
It's fine. I like my days off.
She likes her days off. So.
Okay. That's good. So let's see. And Christina shared some information about work opportunities unlimited. Thank you, Christine. And Coleen has a question. What was Alexa's school program and transition program at 17? When did work experience start?
Outside of school at 17 or inside or both?
I would answer both.
Okay, so again, I mean, she started doing odd jobs after school, starting in second grade. And so her work experience, really paid employment, started at 17 when she started working at Coleen's flower shop. You see on one of the slides that she worked at City Hall for a time period. That she worked there because I knew someone at City Hall, and I reached out and said, is there any way that she could have an internship? That internship wasn't paid. She was 15 years old when that one started, but it wasn't paid employment. So Alexa really wanted to get paid. She said it was boring, but I believe, you know, any opportunity to work or gain those skills is a great opportunity and should be taken. Now, it was 1 day a week in the summer, so it wasn't too taxing on her, but great opportunity for her. Mm-hmm. And then additional paid employment came with the Boys and Girls Club, 2 summers, and now walking dogs, and now at TJ MAXX. So at school at 17, we always had that focus, whether it was after school, where they would help support her. Like I said, someone from Boston Public Schools would come in occasionally and work with on the job site to help support Alexa. That wasn't full time. But her transition program at the Henderson started probably when she was in second grade, informally, more formally, probably when she was around 16 years old, when we really, really started honing in on those skills, interviewing, money management.
Yeah.
What else?
I said yes.
Yes, she said yes, she agreed.
Okay.
And
Great,
food preparation was also a skill that we really wanted her to learn. Grooming skills, how to present yourself, all of those, because we all thought about what would happen at an employment site, you know, what skills do you need. Also for me, and a lot of parents don't talk about it, but sex education was really, really important. It wasn't happening at the school, and so I advocated for that when she was about 18, 19 years old. But they didn't have a curriculum, so we worked really hard with the school for a modified curriculum because she's a healthy young adult. She wants to be in a relationship just like everybody else, and she needed the skills to be able to identify, like, what is a healthy relationship? What, you know, everyone needs sex education. So found that it was really important for her to have that as part of, and written in her goals, which they did. And with sex education comes along those safety skills. I feel like it's very, very, very important. We've had instances that has happened along our journey, and those things will always come up. So teaching those skills early and often, and the key word is often, so not just once. It's that repetition that really worked well with Alexa.
Okay.
All right, sounds great. Okay, so let's see. Dee Dee has a question. Is there a time limit for the use of job coaches?
I'm sorry, time limit for what?
For the use of job coaches.
Not through DDS, no. It's one of the services that Alexa receives through her adult services. So when you say time limit, it doesn't end. And it also depends how much they need it. So Alexa, because she had started that job prior to leaving school, she had a job coach through Work Without Limits that started out sort of on the heavy side and then started to fade. So by the time Best Buddies came in, she didn't need as much support. But when she does need more support, they come back in. So even though now they're coming once a month, I can call, or even Alexa could reach out to them and ask for additional time, and they come back in, and then they work with her on whatever her needs might be. And everyone's different. It's all individualized. So for Alexa, because she's been doing this job now for over a year, a good year and a half, and it's the same skill every day that she's using, so she's used to her job and what she does. It's more the nuances around her job, like how do I ask for time off? Like those things are still difficult for her, but the job itself, I feel like she's mastered. And then at school, it all depends on the school. You know, with a paraprofessional or her teaching staff, it always would depend on, you know, the time that they had and what we had worked in as goals in our IEP. And a lot of it was fading services for her, you know, starting off very heavy and then fading those services, but no time limit as far as I know.
Okay, so Coleen asked a question about the school getting a job coach, and then Yuki shared that, yeah, the schools can get the job coach as long as they have enough staff to cover.
Right.
She's a transition teacher, you know, or a paraprofessional can provide support. So Nancy just noted that what is notable and fantastic is that Alexa's internships started when she was in 2nd grade, not when she was 17. I would bet that early on she had chores at home, which is also a great learning for future jobs.
Yes. Yeah, so at home, Alexa has 2 sisters. She's the oldest, and it was really important because her sisters would point it out, why do I have to do that and Alexa doesn't have to do that? And so that, you know, back and forth with siblings, right, starts very early, and they were right. And Alexa had the same amount of chores as they did, and she might have needed a little bit more support in those chores. Maybe they were modified a little bit for her, but she was still expected, you know, to make her bed, to clean her room, you know, empty the dishwasher, put your, you know, dish in the dishwasher after you eat something. So those things started very, very early for us. And a lot of it did have to do because her siblings would complain. If they thought that we were giving Alexa too much attention and allowing Alexa to get off the hook, they would call us out on it. You know, why isn't she doing it? She should be doing it too. So she was very young, you know, and we've modified things for her at the time. But yes, she's had to be responsible for it, just like they were. I think that's really important too. Start young, start often, and just, I mean, and I know a lot of teachers, you know, when it's really having those conversations at the IEP table, just say to parents, like, here's things that you could do at home, because sometimes as parents, we don't think of that. We're so preoccupied with everything else that we have to do. You know, we want to make sure academically, you know, our kids are doing great. You know, there's all kinds of other things that we might have to do, and doctor's appointments and other types of appointments that we have to bring them to. So at the IEP table, it's always a nice way to discuss, like, here's some things that you could do at home. Yeah. That could be really, really helpful. Things that we may not have thought of because we just aren't thinking that way. And a lot of, you know, and I think we did have a lot of great teachers that would help support us in that way and give us some really good ideas of different things that we could do with Alexa. And friendships, I think, is extremely important. You know, how do you maintain and keep those friendships? And you know, the Boys and Girls Club for us, again, the after school program was really key, because otherwise you're going to go home after school and maybe you don't have, you know, that neighborhood, that bustling neighborhood. And a lot of our kiddos are out doing after school sports, so competitive now. I mean, even my other 2 kids, very competitive in sports. So having a place with an after school program, everyone else is there, are those sort of built-in friendships, which is really helpful too. Great. And I talked about that in the presentation on Alexa. It really is working on. We talk about it a lot. She gets out of work at 1 o'clock. What to do with her time when she gets out of work, because she would sit at home and watch Grey's Anatomy for the rest of her day, and she could be there for 5 hours, and it's really self-isolating yourself. And I always worry about, you know, depression. All those things could easily set in unless we really think about, you know, what can she do? Who is around? And it sometimes does take me reaching out to people, but she does. Yes, so she's doing a good job.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Seriously.
Great. So we've got a lot more questions. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to them all today, but let's see. So there was a question that who supported Alexa at the Boys and Girls program? Who paid for that support?
So the Boys and Girls Club is inclusive, and so they have a director of inclusion. So at the time, I was the director of inclusion. Surprise, surprise. And so the staff there was all trained to work with individuals with disabilities. So there wasn't a one-to-one that would come in. We worked with the club members on a lot of natural support. And when individuals would come to the club that really did need that one-on-one, we would find there was a teen center there. We would work with folks from the teen, young kids from the teen center to help support. And we would look at the schedule of what was going on at the club. There could be an art class, there could be a music class, and those are self-contained. And so if someone needed more one-to-one support but didn't have the funds to pay for that, we would work with scheduling that member to make sure that they were in a class that had extra support, because sometimes in a class there could be two adults who were working with the individuals. But we made sure also that there was training that was being done at the Boys and Girls Club of Dorchester, and that they were very welcoming. There were individuals who did come in with one-to-one aid. So if you think of an ABA therapist, sometimes you have an ABA therapist who's working in home, but we would ask that the ABA therapist come and work at the Boys and Girls Club with the individuals so they could access more programming. And then also there are a few individuals that did have some flexible family funding from DDS, and they used some of that to pay someone to come in. So there were all kinds of things going on at the club, but it was this particular club is inclusive, and that's really how it worked. But I would say, and I always say this to people, you should really approach your after-school program and talk to them about, let's brainstorm on different ways. How can we, ensure that everyone is being included in a meaningful way? And I would have families approach me, and some of their loved ones would have some really, really high needs, and we would never want to turn anyone away. We said, well, let's start with one class. Let's start with a music class and see how that goes. The more the staff would get to know the kids, the better they would be able to work with them. And so that's what it would take. It's, it's baby steps, but again, start early and never be afraid to approach a place and talk to them about your loved one. Again, that's how Alexa got most of her jobs, and that's how we will really continue to access the Boys and Girls Club. Because when she started there, I wasn't working there. I ended up getting a job there, but when she started, I wasn't there.
All righty, thanks. And then Kathy has asked you, Diane, if you would put together a slide on your parenting tips, because I think those have been very helpful for the families that have been on that are on the call. Thank you. And let's see. Okay, we've got 15 new messages. I'm just going to kind of skip through and try to see which ones. The presentation is being recorded, so it will be on the YouTube channel at the Arc of Massachusetts, probably in about a week or so. It takes a little bit to download and edit and that sort of thing. So Lynn has a question. Do you have recommendations about young people who want to work, can work, but will likely always need some support? Like, is DDS job coaching given always with the expectation that it will fade out?
Yes, DDS doesn't have, the providers do not provide one-to-one full-time support, but there are community-based day programs that, if you go on DDS's website, there are other options where you can be in a program and they take individuals out into the community for internship opportunities with the hope that they can learn skills and maybe work some part-time hours. There's also self-direction, which Alexa also has some self-direction funding through DDS, where she has a one-to-one person. So we use some of the funds for that. So a day and a half, she has a person that Alexa and I both hired, but mainly Alexa, hired her, and we decided on a pay rate for her. And that person will pick up Alexa and they go to the gym, they'll go for walks, they go food shopping, and they talk about nutrition. They go and get their nails done. She helps out with taking Alexa to the doctor, or actually tomorrow, she's going to pick her up from work, and Alexa has a hair appointment. She'll take her to her hair appointment. So self-direction can be really, really great. Another thing you can do, but in our case right now, Alexa is kind of busy with work, is, and something that I thought about when we first started self-direction, is approach maybe an animal shelter, or we actually reached out back to the Boys and Girls Club to see if Alexa could go there with her self-direction person and do an internship. Now, granted, it's not paid, but it's still working on those skills, which can be helpful later on. Alexa did not want to go back to the Boys and Girls Club, so we didn't do that. But it's still a thought of what's out there. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities. I think about shelters, you know, that she and her self-direction person can go and help. So Alexa can continue to grow with her skills. So when you're looking past 18 or 22, self-direction, in combination with what we do. So we do the self-direction, we do the job coach, and then we also have a provider, You're With Us, where she's at Northeastern. So I think the combination of such works really well, and some folks will just do self-direction, and some will only do, you know, supported employment, and some will do the community-based day program, which is a program, I think, and I don't know a whole lot, but you get picked up and you go to a program, usually goes around 9 to 3, and some of these programs work on those job skills and internships.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Nancy has a question for you, Alexa. You've tried a lot of things. What are the jobs that you like the best?
TJ MAXX, Coleen's Flower Shop, and walking dogs.
Great. All the things you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kathy asked a question about what is a modified sex education resource?
So every school district is different, and unfortunately our school district had a didn't really have a great modified curriculum for Alexa, so we worked with the district and their health and wellness department, because I had it written into Alexa's IEP, and then worked with a special education teacher to work with health and wellness to take a curriculum that they already had and modify it so Alexa could access it in her peers at her level, and how she could best access it so she could understand it. So that's what we did. We worked. I mean, none of this is, you know, none of it was easy. So I'm not trying to make it sound easy because it wasn't. It was a lot of phone calls and pushing, and you know, really trying to get things to work for us. Going to school committee hearings, meeting with different people.
Yes.
So that's how we got that done. And now Boston Public Schools is they have a modified curriculum. So I think that's great.
Great. Okay. Let's see. I think we have one more question. Eve was wondering if the Northeastern program was specific to Boston Public Schools.
Was it what with Boston Public Schools?
Was it specific, the Northeastern program specific to Boston Public Schools?
Yeah, it started, I think, being specific to Boston Public Schools, but I'm not sure of this, but I think they are connected to other high schools now, not just in Boston. But I can look that up, and I can outreach to the executive director and find out. I do know, as a DDS provider, that they're in different colleges and universities. So it's not just Northeastern. They're in BU. They're in, I want to say, 10 to 15 other colleges, maybe more.
All right. And let's see, just a couple of questions on the MBTA travel training. Did you go through them, or did you go through, or was it the school that developed it?
So it started out, MBTA does have a program, and they did work with MBTA on that program. But then it was the school that we worked on, because, you know, she would go out to the community with her classmates and do different things, so they would all take the train together. And then when Alexa started going to Northeastern and to TJ MAXX, it became more specific to just Alexa and not going out as a full group. So travel training started in middle school, where they would go out as large groups, not just on the train, but also walking. There's a lot of safety things that have to happen just walking down the street. And, being in Dorchester, it's very busy. So, crosswalks and lights. And so they worked on those skills first. Then they started going out as groups, working on those transition skills, going in town, going to the supermarket, working on all kinds of skills. And then when it became more specific to Alexa, we needed help making sure that Alexa could get to and from where she needed to go. And then they worked more one-on-one. And then her teacher at one point wanted to stop travel training because she had been doing it for a long time. Like I said, it's been over 4 years, but I needed as a mom to feel really good about it. So I asked them, I wanted to see data. I wanted to know when they were fading. So one of her teachers is fantastic from the Henderson. All of her teachers are fantastic, but a couple of them, we really worked on them. They would go in a different car. They would be on the train, but they would be in a different car. They would be maybe 2 cars away. They started with, meeting her directly at the train station to meeting her at a different location or on the platform of the train. So they worked out all kinds of scenarios of what could go wrong in situations, and how do we look at those situations, and how can Alexa learn from them. So I asked them that they collect data because I wanted to see it. I wanted to see how the services were fading until everyone, including Alexa, mostly Alexa, felt comfortable taking the train independently, and she does now. So she takes the train to Northeastern. So it's been great.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. That's all the time we have. So thank you, Dianne, for your parenting wisdom, and thank you, Alexa, for sharing your story, and also being, sharing what's good and what your hopes and dreams are, and also places that sometimes you struggle. So this is all going to be recorded up on our YouTube channel. After the webinar is over, you're going to be rerouted to a very brief 10-question Survey Monkey, so we can see how your webinar experience was. So thank you all for joining us. Alexa and Dianne, you're getting lots of thumbs up from the audience. So, okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Was that Miss Yuki?